You've got
Okay.
great. Well, welcome everyone to the April 2022 meeting of the North Bay Electric Auto Association. We've got no presenter today, but quite a bit of news and some, some ideas about things to go forward on. So I think we'll have a good conversation. I can get this going. Yeah, cool. So we'll start with our usual agenda, no updates there, and start with introductions. I'll do my best to walk through everyone on the screen as we keep adding people here. David Heacock, you want to go?
I'm Dave Heacock, live in Fairfield. I got a primarily driving my wife's 2007 Saturn Hybrid View. My Avani's still under repair.
And Cecilia, you're at the top of the screen too.
Hi, I'm Cecilia Sullivan. I drive a 2018 Model 3 and I live in West Sonoma County.
Great. Woody?
Good morning, everyone. Woody Hastings. I also live in West County, and I still drive when I drive, which is rarely, a 2013 Chevy Volt with a V as in Victor.
And Lowell?
Hi, Lowell Ansa here. I live in Sebastopol and I drive a 2014 Tesla Model S and a Leaf, a 2013 Leaf. And then more recently, and quite frequently, I drive my Ryobi riding mower. I have, as you can see, the land behind me, I have a lot of grass to mow and it's pretty high. So I have to make a daily routine out of, taking a hunk out of it. And it's a wonderful, wonderful machine. I really like it. I've had it about 4 years now. Totally electric. It's a zero radius turn, and it's just extremely efficient way and comfortable way to mow all this grass.
That's super. Bill?
Yeah, Bill Baldavich. We still have our 2016 Kia Soul, and we'll be wanting to get a new vehicle, a new EV sometime soon or in a year. And we love the Kia Soul, but they're not making it anymore.
Yeah, hopefully they're making so many other ones. Hopefully one of those will work out for you.
Well, we're looking for one that will be as short as so,
Got it.
or
Yeah.
similar.
Yeah. And Zeno?
Yeah, good morning, everybody. I live in Sebastopol. I just came back from a bicycle conference of Carl Bike in Oakland. I drove my Honda Insight. I think it's from 2008. It's like the hybrid, the earlier model. At the bike conference, there were mixed messages about e-bikes and disagreement about electric vehicles. So maybe I can read that in some of the news items, or we can talk about it separately or next time. Or
I was curious to talk about that. I found a YouTube video that talks a lot about the difference between electric public transit and electric cars. And I thought it would be pretty controversial and interesting for us to talk about. It might take a whole meeting if we're open to it. Brad?
Yeah, hi, I'm Brad Morrison. I live in Santa Rosa, and I get around, as I have for quite a while, in my 2004 Honda Civic Hybrid. Hoping to buy an electric car someday, maybe when, I don't know, we'll see if the US Congress and Senate end up passing some incentive program, but maybe that's when I'll do it.
And David Harris?
Yes, I live in Santa Rosa, just north of Highway 12 on the west side of Rincon Valley. And we have our fourth Leaf, which is a 2020, all of which we have leased. So there was never a question of when to move on to the next car, right? But we did buy a Bolt in Sonoma Clean Power's last promo, and gee, hard to believe. I mean, that's more than 4 years now.
And Tor?
Hey, I'm Tor. I live in Sebastopol. We have a 2020 Bolt that gets us around when we need to, and a two-wheel human-powered breezer, a bicycle that gets me around most stuff in town.
I thought I might have seen you on the bike path yesterday. Wasn't sure. Ray?
Did you say Ray? Sorry
I
to
sure
hear.
did. Hi, Ray.
Just bringing you greetings. I just came in from driving my electric golf cart and digging weeds and gathering trash in the yard. I still have my 2018 Tesla Model S, which my daughter uses to drive me around when I have to go for a medical test or something. And I've been with this group since, well, I'm not sure when it was formed, actually. I got my first electric car in 1992, and as soon as I found out this group existed, I joined it. But it probably a year or two after that.
Ray, we need to get you into the newspaper. 1992, that goes back a ways. And I'm not sure.
Well, I go back a ways. I live pretty close to where David Harris just spoke. I'm north of Highway 12 in Rincon Valley, and it's rural. So my only problems in life is transportation, because they won't let me drive anymore. My eyes aren't good enough.
Yeah.
And there's no bus out here.
That's why I felt conflicted when I was looking at the, case for public transit over cars. In some of our rural areas, I thought still need a few cars, but we can talk about that more. I realize why Jerry enjoys presenting. You get to say your little interjections in between people's intros. Mike Newell.
Hey, good morning, everybody. So my Leaf just turned 11 years old, and we took our other all-electric car to Nevada weekend before last, and I noticed when I first started driving my Leaf and I went into the city and stuff, I was always over in the right lane driving really slow because I wanted to get the most range on that day that I could get. And a couple weeks ago when we went to Nevada, well, we were over in the fast lane in our electric car, and all the SUVs were in the slow lane trying to get as much miles per gallon that they could get. So thought it was quite the poetic justice at this point in time. Yeah.
That's great. And I'm Sonia Carey. I live outside of Sebastopol on the southern side near Woody, and I drive a Tesla Model 3. It's a 2019, and it's a standard range. I don't think they make them as low cost as this anymore, which is too bad. And we took it to Monterey recently, and anyone with a 200-mile EV can have a nice weekend in Monterey. There's a free garage to charge in downtown in Monterey, which is nice. So I think I went through everyone. Did I miss anyone? I thought there was a 13th person who joined at some point, but possibly not. Great. I'll move forward. So chapter business, we do have some. Let's see, our general stuff. This is the information about how you can interact with different affinity groups within the NBEAA. We've got some people on the NBEAA press email. The NBEAA club email goes to absolutely everyone we have. So we're all learning to use that very judiciously. And we don't have Bruce on our call today, but hopefully we'll get Bruce soon and start to update everyone on membership and so forth. And Woody, you have a question?
I do have a question, and I'll try to remember your answer. So my question is, for the type of thing that I'm going to talk about today a little bit, which is inviting NBEAA to sign on to a letter, which of these groups is the right one to, because I actually looked at this last night and I couldn't quite decide for myself. Like if I wanted to just reach out, which of these groups is the right one to send something like that to?
I would send it to NBEAA team. There's only about 5 of us, I believe, that get involved in putting the presentation together. And it's better than just sending it to me as, kind of a point of contact. Yeah. I like that. I think it creates visibility. And, I can always take responsibility for following up on some of the things that come through in there. But feel free.
Okay, so team is kind of like the steering committee or the, right? Okay.
Yeah. And that's kind of the way I see it for now. We can always keep iterating on that. So yeah, and I guess we don't have team. Okay, so we've got team on this next slide. Sorry, I don't know my own slide deck. I love consistency. This is kind of the way we've been communicating this information. And so with the past experience was what we've done is that we've kind of sent out an invite at the end of each of the meetings to solicit news and other information, including events. And so I just wanted to remind people that over the last 2 years, we haven't had many events, but please keep an eye out for promoting events within this kind of presentation cycle. So if there's anything that is happening past mid-May, we can promote it in our early May meeting. So think about events going forward. Then we have the video of the March meeting. So I did update the link here, and Jerry had uploaded the March meeting. What's kind of nice is to look at our YouTube channel in general. There are people who access, various meetings, and I think it's kind of interesting that, maybe people are watching these meetings or accessing them for the information that we collect. Also we have the presentation with the links in it. So anytime you want to use the second link, it goes to the slide deck, and the slide deck has active links. You see all these green links all the time when we present things, and sometimes they're pretty helpful, particularly if it's an area that you're interested in. Great. So build a presentation. We're looking for a topic or a speaker in May. I kind of focused on admin so far, but I'm interested in reaching out to individuals to ask them to present, on topics, and I'm going to work on that. And so if you have an idea for me, if you'd like me to reach out to anyone within the county or further abroad, I'm happy to do that on your behalf. Or if you know someone, you want to talk to them and bring them up. The other thing that we've done in the past is, you can pick out a topic yourself and put a few slides together and talk about it. And I think going forward, we can have a little bit more of a discussion session versus kind of a highly informed presentation topic, although people seem to enjoy those as well. So either researching or just proposing a discussion, either one, I think works out, and we can kind of schedule those out into the future. So any questions, thoughts, ideas on that right now?
Well, I'd like to revisit some topic that I think somehow I felt we kind of rushed over in the past. Mm-hmm. And that is the name change. So the national organization changed into vehicle from automobile. which
Yeah.
I thought indicated a broadening of the concern,
Yeah.
like electrified mobility in general.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that I would want to talk about that again. I mean, I know it requires some email changes and something, but that's just a one time thing. I think the issue itself is important. What is vehicle? What is an automobile? Like are buses part of automobile? Probably not literally, like. So I think in what we have been talking about, even not even looking at bicycles, there's already a sense that the field is broadening. And I think it would be good to reflect that in the name of the organization, because it may attract new people that are enthusiastic about micromobility, public transit, that kind of thing. So I would recommend a conversation about that issue around name change or not.
I'm happy to put it on the May list. And I think maybe identifying all the things that, having a conversation about whether or not we want to do it and identifying the level of effort and the individuals that would need to make those changes. Let's just table that for now, but bring it up for May. I know that there are a few changes that would need to be made if we were to decide to make a change on our side. Also, I'd like to research, I think that there was something about the Electric Vehicle Association change and how we need to reflect their name in our chapter. And so there might be some clever things to do there too. There was a hand up before and I guess we covered it.
Tanya,
Yeah.
could I make a suggestion?
Sure.
One of the most interesting meetings of this association that I remember took place maybe 5 years or so ago. The person in charge of the county fleet of vehicles spoke to us and told us things that I found quite surprising. One of which was, for example, when they put a heavy truck and make it all electric, the money they save mostly is in the maintenance and brake linings, something I hadn't thought before. It seems to me, if we haven't done it soon, when I wasn't looking, that a review of that progress, either from the county or if we can find another group of equal stature and significance, find out what progress is being made, what plans are being made for heavy municipal vehicles going electric.
Yeah, I'd be happy to look into that. I know we had more recently, 2 years ago, the guy in planning, his name is Brad, who looked at the placement of new electric vehicle charging locations. But the fleet question would be great. And if anyone has kind of an idea of who I could contact, let me know. Otherwise, I'll see if I can do the research to find who's in charge or who's second in charge even. Great. Any other ideas right now since we're on this topic, or should we move forward? Sounds good. Okay, so this is just kind of a reiteration of all of our emails right now that we have in Google Groups. And certainly if you have an ad hoc item, or if you have an event that's near term, you can use this NBEAA discuss email, and that'll go out a little faster and people can look at it, talk about it, that sort of thing. Tor?
Yeah, I just dropped 2 ideas in the chat. One is just to follow up with Steve Heckeroth at Select Trek.
Yeah.
They have an assembly facility. I think there's an article in the paper recently about it. And he's apparently doing a demo here soon with some, so just learn a little more about where they're at and how, how it's going to get into local farmers, vineyards, shared ownership, whatever. What's the status? Where can we, encourage that? And then the other topic would be to was just getting a feel for, the installation of DC fast chargers in our county. There's a number, Sonoma Clean Power, PG&E, and others have incentives for different programs. Just it'd be interesting to see. I don't know if there's one person that could do the overall share, but interesting topic. That's all I got.
Great. I was kind of curious too on next steps for the city buses in Santa Rosa based on the grant. Maybe there isn't anything to report, but there should be soon if they're doing planning. And I saw that SelecTrack article, which is great. Let's see.
I'll add one more. Apparently their PG&E got approval for a vehicle to grid pilot. Now we're learning more next week, but that's interesting because that's come up over and over time without much progress. And so the fact that they've asked for funding and approval from the PUC to do a pretty detailed study that's supposed to get kickoff this year, it'd be neat to learn more. So about that.
Yeah, that would be good. Great. So returning to Thunderstruck, we don't have John on the meeting today, but I know that John is doing some research on this topic, and let's all cross our fingers. And I think there are three different aspects of this. One is the actual COVID rates that are going on in the county. Luckily they're pretty low right now, but we have to keep watching them. The sensitivity to using the Thunderstruck space there, and then also just our ability to set up hybrid meetings. So hopefully we can make some real progress here, and I have more to say on that in future screens here. The hybrid meeting concept came up last month, and we agreed to form a team to identify how best to support the hybrid meetings. And in our March meeting, we voted to have a target budget for materials or devices that would help us get there. And I believe that the number was $1,500. And Zeno, Jerry, and Lowell all expressed an interest on looking into this. So Zeno, maybe you have a comment on this? You're on mute. You're on mute, Zeno. I'm asking you to unmute. There you go.
Sorry about that. So Gary is taking that plane trip around the country, right? So I don't know what Lowell, whether he has talked to Gary but I will try to set up maybe a meeting with the three of us early May when Gary is going to be back, and we can look at some of the options and then present that at the next meeting. So.
That'd be great. Thank you. I'll make a note to just create a slide for discussing this again. And as I said, we'll have to work out the logistics of the timing as well. All right.
I had one other thing to say about this topic. Everybody must have noticed that the way we look at COVID has kind of shifted from number per 10,000 to capacity of your county to take care of it. And so it has more to do with hospitalization rates these days. I mean, one COVID case is not similar to another case. So if 4 people get COVID, but they have barely symptoms, that is less of a concern than if they all have to be rushed to extra care facilities. So I don't know how we revisit that particular criterion, but I would recommend looking into that again, because I mean, that's kind of, when you follow the New York Times, or a lot of the attention is about another way of looking at this pandemic.
Yeah, I share your, your concern and interest in revisiting the criterion. But what I was hoping was that, since we're not healthcare people, that one of the other factors might come into play and make it clear and obvious, where we don't have to be, slicing and dicing how well we're doing in the county. But, if we're invited back to Thunderstruck and we've got all the equipment ready and we're ready to go, we might have to revisit the criterion as well. I'll make a note. Maybe we can talk about that. I have tended to think that kicking the can down the road is good on this one, because we'll have more information. So here's the big dramatic moment. Here is your new set of officers for the year. So I'm going to be taking over the presidency role from April 2022 to March 2023. And Jerry's going to step back into the president emeritus role, but hopefully not too far back, other than his trip around the country that he's on right now. And we received Lowell Ansa's resignation for vice president. So this leaves a clear path to the presidency, where Cecilia Sullivan can be our vice president for this year. And we can help her become president next year in 2023. Any questions or comments? Lowell, do you have any comments that you would like to make about this?
Nothing special. I mean, it just seemed to me after some consideration that the idea of having 2 vice presidents was not a good one, and that I think a clearer path would have been to have one. And so I had the power to make that happen, and I did.
I think we had a nice process as of last month, and I think everything worked out for the good. We're all set up, and I'm also really hopeful that we can work on this concept that Zeno brought up around spreading around the news curation, and also the idea that Jerry kind of intimated last time, which is that presenting and presentation development doesn't necessarily have to do with leadership activities. There aren't too many leadership activities, but there could be more. So we'll see how it goes going forward. So we'll leave it at that. And we don't have Bruce today, but hopefully we'll get Bruce involved too, and kind of learn a little more about our financing as we move into buying equipment. All right. So one of the topics that I wanted to bring up around the leadership change was just, 2022 goals. I think there's some goals that we've already had, like launching the new website. I'm really excited about that. And I know that that's kind of in process. There's a couple technical things to overcome, and then we'd get there. I'm hearing that there might be a name change conversation that would influence how we look at things around that. So that might be another goal that we'll have. Making hybrid meetings a reality, is a goal that we're all sharing, that we've already kind of started in on. So the third thing here is really kind of open for discussion. I think that with our charter of advocacy and enthusiasm and so forth, and the opening back up, that it would be really nice to participate in events. And so trying to look forward toward something that's a few months out, that might be a way that we could increase visibility with electric vehicles, and really kind of pick and choose, our opportunities, since we're a small group, and start to participate in events. We used to do the Apple Blossom Parade. We used to do Earth Day. And I think, there used to be some of our own kind of EV Expo events that we kind of started out with a few years ago. So does anyone have any comment or question about prioritizing some of our goals for the year?
One of the things I would like to see us do is do more outreach, that is promoting the fact that we exist, and that we are a resource for people in our community who are interested in electric vehicles, interested in buying electric vehicles, and that they can come to that resource and find out things that are true about our local environment. What's available here, what sort of prices are available, some evaluation of the electric cars that are on the market in Sonoma County. And so, because I know a lot of people that are looking for cars, and they're having to do all of this legwork themselves. And I think we could be helpful in doing some of that legwork for them, and providing them with a resource, but also letting people know that we exist and that this is a place to come to for that sort of thing.
That's great. I would just add to that, maybe, calls to join our club. If we're, in an organization, a chapter of an organization that's meant to be joined, perhaps the launch of our website could kind of support us around that. There might be some outreach that we could do to have people come to the site, learn a little more about who we are and what we do, and when we meet. So let's see if we can pull that together. I'll update this slide, and we maybe continue to revisit it in the future months. Anybody else? Tor?
Yeah. Just to piggyback on Lowell's comments about, giving advice to people. Our website doesn't really suggest that anyone here is available to do that. And I would just say that's a room for improvement. So either somebody in our group says, we're the EV concierges or something that will answer questions, or we link into, there's a couple other websites that have pretty, you can navigate and see what cars are available, what do they cost and all that stuff, but do a little better job of sort of trying to answer those questions, and then maybe give people access to a real person to answer any other questions they have, because I don't feel like we're that accessible. We have a great little monthly dialogue about all kinds of fun and interesting facts, but the advocacy, or being an advisor to somebody trying to buy an IEV, that needs a little polishing. Then I think the other event thing, one thing I learned recently about Apple Blossom Parade, which is on the 23rd this month, the electric bus in Sebastopol is going to be in the parade, but probably just by itself. So, and that's, I guess it's probably whoever is going to be in the parade is in the parade this year. But next year, Earth Day will actually be on the parade, and I would say let's get the theme of Apple Blossom Parade to be a little more eco-friendly and have a better contingent there. So, but as far as other events, it's going back to the things we used to do, where we'd have a plaza full of cars and people could come out and talk. That's useful, I think, still, but there's also a lot of electric cars on the road. And I always think, like, how can we connect with these people, because they're now advocates, or I think. And so there's sort of this, who's going to survey all the people that now have electric cars to sort of glean and then help advise the next wave of people. And so that, I don't know who does that. Is that something we instigate together with some other organization to sort of do a survey of people that have bought EVs recently in the last couple of years, and sort of use their words to sort of advocate for the next wave of folks to be doing it. And I don't know that we've ever done that, but
Local testimonials, yeah, something like that.
I mean, we could actually participate in the parade next year. Get some number of us to take our electric vehicles and you know, basically drive them down the parade route, and with some signage and so forth that advertises our club and you know, tells people where to find us, and also show as a showcase for some of the more recently available electric cars that we happen to possess among us.
Yep. Cecilia?
Yeah, thinking about the outreach question, one thing that we could do is set up a social media presence. I particularly think on Facebook, there's like a lot of EV groups. I think a lot of like younger people there are on social media, and so being able to have a space where we can reach out to them and have like a little bit more of a another location where folks can find us, I think would be helpful.
Yeah, that'd be great. And Zeno?
Yeah, to follow up on that. So I don't know how we think about that, but you can actually pay a little money to Facebook or other such to target your messages to a specific interest group or demographic. Right, so rather than only reaching mostly the people that are already follow your Facebook page, you can push your message to people that have expressed interest in electric vehicles or sustainable mobility or whatever the keywords are that you use in your search for the demographic. And I have done that for slow food in the past, and we got over time, I did that maybe 3 years, 4 years, and we got 4 times as many followers at least. So it was a very helpful for this food organization to reach out to people that may not be part of the traditional Italian loving slow food people, but that were interested in food justice and health and other aspect of the food system. So that's something to do, maybe spend a little money on that we have, right? The other idea is we could be, I mean, and all these things have to do with capacity, right? Do we have the capacity to do these things? I mean, it's easy to have ideas, but how many people are available and willing to put some time in that?
Mm-hmm.
I feel that the group could become also more active in advocacy with like the county, the cities, Sonoma Clean Power, their EV program. So letters writing in the newspaper if it comes up. So there could be a more, another besides social media, which is more directed to the general population, it could be more visibility among decision makers. And I think that would raise the stature of the organization if people see a letter to the editor or a comment, or you speak in front of a council or the board. I think that would be helpful.
Great, great. And David, talk?
Yeah, does everybody or anybody know about the Drive Electric Earth Day in Napa on April 24th?
Oh, right. I can't remember if I put it in the slide deck.
I got another invite because I went last year, and it's kind of it's a fixed location, so people could sign up and take their electric vehicles of any sort. I mean, they're looking,
Mm-hmm.
from what I understand, they're looking for participants to come, and might be an opportunity for NBEAA to, I don't know, talk about that. I'm not sure whether the Avani is going to be back on the road by then, but it's from 11 to 4 that day, and you can park your car there if you got any electric vehicle, I guess, and then kind of spread the word there. There'd be a way to get to talk to people.
Great. You know, my inclination is that we should definitely do a spring event like the Apple Blossom Parade next year, but also that if there was something ideal in a few months, we could kind of, plan ahead to have a full exhibit. And it would give us kind of a little runway to getting it ready. For April 24th in Napa, we might be at that point where individuals might want to attend based on their availability. But thanks for reminding us, David. Unless anyone has anything else, I will kind of like compile all of these creative ideas without really censoring them or prioritizing them. There are some relationships between some of them. And, to Zeno's previous comment, it's just depends on who wants to kind of engage around some of these things and make them all happen. But yeah, it's really interesting thinking about how to maybe leverage Facebook or Instagram going forward to also promote the idea of participation within the group. So those are kind of synergies I'm hearing. So let's move on from this for now. This is the other big thing that we talked about last month that I went a little wild with Cecilia's encouragement. We talked a little bit about dividing up the news segments and maybe organizing the information in our news. And you'll see it organized a little bit today, and then you might have an opinion at the end of the meeting how things work. One idea was to talk a little bit about the actual segments that I'm proposing here. I didn't get feedback from people yet. I didn't ask for feedback yet. So, one question is, do we have the right categories? Local news, EV adoption stats, legislation and policy, new models, e-mobility, production and batteries, and general energy and climate. I thought this seventh one was kind of also a little bit of other, anything that's non-EV. But obviously some news articles are going to fit into more than one thing. And we want some nice big broad understood categories and not too many of them. So if we could reduce even a little bit, that might make sense. Any quick comments now, or do you want to hold your comments till the end of the meeting? Great. I just keep thinking about it and let me know in the future if you've got a kind of an idea for improving this. But if I move forward in the meeting, you'll kind of see it in action a little bit. The last thing I'll say is we certainly can take volunteers. Even as of today, if you want to volunteer to take on a category for next month, it'll just be a great trial run. We'll see if we can't, make it all happen that way. All right, so we do have a couple of events, and also Woody's got a little offer for us to sign on to a letter. So I put that into the events and offers section. The first event is the Climate Policy Summit. I noticed this in Woody's slide deck from last month, and I thought I'd repeat it here. Woody, do you want to say anything real quick about it?
Sure, I'll just say that it is coming up soon. It is an in-person event. There's actually zero option for participating virtually, so you'd have to schlep out to Sacramento. There is a fairly steep gate fee, so it's not a cheap date. But it is a state policy focused summit on a wide variety of climate and energy related issues, but sustainable mobility and electric vehicles is in the mix. And I'm actually organizing the afternoon breakout session on sustainable mobility. That is largely around electrification of transportation. So yeah, registration is still open. That is the URL where you can find the registration page. So anyone that has the wherewithal to, fork up the the registration fee and make the trip to Sacramento, great to have you. Yeah, so I don't know what else to say.
Glad you're involved in it, and hopefully we can get a little debrief on it, Woody.
Sure, I'd be happy to do that if folks are interested.
Yeah. North Bay Science Discovery Days. This is something that got forwarded to us because I think we might have participated in some year past. I don't have a personal recollection of this. The Discovery Days are really aimed at 4th to 8th graders. It happens Sunday, May 15th, 10 to 4 at Grace Pavilion. And there is a fee for nonprofits to exhibit. Because this was an incoming that came to us, I thought I'd bring it to the group. If anyone has a real interest in taking leadership and making this happen, we could vote on paying for this exhibit. But my personal opinion is that it's not exactly on target for us or within our wheelhouse because it is educational. Does anyone have any questions or comments? Tor?
Yeah, I've participated in this event before with our solar activities, and it's fun. Pre-pandemic, it was fun. And you could say there's some value in reaching kids and their parents because the kids come with parents. So, but this is short notice. I would say put it on the things to think about participating next year.
Okay.
And really, you got to think a little bit beyond than just showing a car. What can they, give people something to do. So that's the educational side of things.
Yep.
That I respond to anyway, because there's been solar contractors that'll show up to this thing and with brochures and a solar panel, and like, well, there's nothing you can do with that except talk and sell something. So same thing here is that keep it on the list for thinking about next year, and then have that discussion beforehand about participating and what activity would you offer. So
Great. Mike?
Yeah, and I'll just say I didn't personally participate, but I know that John and the guy named Chris Jones, who was the president before all the modern electric cars came out, I think they've gone in years past, and they had some little hands-on electric motor and stuff that kids could actually touch and wind. And anyway, I'm just saying is that we do have some people still around who could say what's worked in the past.
Cool. Great. Thank you. And this brings us over to should NBEAA sign a Congas letter to the county? Woody, would you like to walk us through this?
Sure, let me see if I still have the right link in my thing here to drop in the chat. Okay, I think this is the right link. So that's a link to the letter that Sonia is referring to. And this one, and we've been through this dance before of sign-on letters. Thank you for your NBEAA's past support and working with us trying to get the county and the cities to adopt prohibitions on new gas stations. So the reason this one is coming up is that in some recent prioritization setting meetings that the county did, they've talked about putting the whole issue of gas stations into the general plan update, which is a huge, cumbersome, lengthy process, and we really don't want that to happen. We want to urge them to leave the gas station issue out of the general plan update process and just take it up as a standalone type issue. And it's, in our view, it's relatively easy to do, relatively low-hanging fruit, get it done. We've seen that demonstrated with Petaluma, Roanoke Park, and Sebastopol have all done it. And Santa Rosa, Cotati, Windsor are in the process. So, and so far there have been no repercussions, unintended consequences, lawsuits, or anything like that. So we do think that, hey, county, just, anyway, that's the sign-on letter. I dropped the link to the letter in the chat, and I think it's been shared in other ways. But anyway, and the deadline is April 15th, so you don't need to decide right now or decide in 10 minutes. We want to get get your response by April 15th, so you got some time to kick it around and read the letter. That's pretty much it.
Well, I would say that I didn't provide the letter in advance. but this is a procedural question of whether or not to separate this kind of advocacy from the general plan. So it seemed like a pretty simple question of whether or not we would advocate for that. And in the past, what we had said was that we would, take a vote with a majority in a meeting around signing on to letters. And so we have this moment right now. So my first question, from the group is, do we have people with any questions or concerns about taking a vote right now about whether or not to sign on to the letter? So are we open to just voting right now? Yeah, let's vote. So all in favor of signing this letter on behalf of the NBEAA and using our logo on the letter, just raise your hand. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, great. So I'll just go ahead and fill it out on our behalf. I know in past months we had a conversation about how to do this, and thanks to Woody brought it up well in advance of a meeting, and we can have a vote. And you've got the link to the letter itself in the chat and also on the slide deck. I will access the form for the letter and just fill it out.
Wow, thank you. Yeah, great. Appreciate that. Wonderful.
Great. I suppose this presentation serves as our meeting minutes on that as well. Great. All right, on to news. So you'll notice in the upper right corner, there's a color-coded category. This one's in EV adoption stats. It's our first news item to discuss. And even though that color is dark gray, the other colors are a little more colorful. In my professional life, I work on things like accessibility and color contrast. So if anyone here is colorblind and wants to let me know that, I'd be curious. Or if you just find things to be difficult to see, I'd be curious, let me know. So on to the actual agenda. This news item, are buyers gravitating to EVs? There's a Bloomberg article and also one that I researched from goodcarbadcar.net that kind of lists all of the actual sales year to date through the end of March. So what we're looking at here is all the sales for all the cars, regardless of their engine type. So what we see is that there have been about 13.2 million sales in March, which is down 26% year over year, I think. I also saw another stat that was that our total car sales are down about 15% year over year across, I think, the first 3 months of 2022. The other thing that's happening is that Toyota overtook GM based on hybrid and plug-in hybrid sales. So I was curious about this question of, like, is the price of gas affecting the types of purchases that are being made already, in February and March? And I guess you could say it is, but it's pushing people to passive hybrids and plug-in hybrids a little bit more if Toyota took over GM. It certainly helped with the Nissan Leaf. The Nissan Leaf had a 49% increase in sales, 4,372 cars year to date. And the Mustang Mach-E had 4,171 year to date. Also the Kia EV6 over 3,000. So those are, we're seeing within the electric cars that are being sold these real bumps in numbers, but it's still a little hard to tease out what's going on. There are two things that are going on here. One is, like, if you look at the Hyundai Ioniq 5, they combine all of their different engine types. So they've got, the gas version, the hybrid version, electric version, and we can't tell the difference. And then the other is just the constraint on the market itself makes it kind of hard. Like if they're not making that many EV6s yet, they aren't making ID4s, or they're not shipping ID4s to the US right now. So we see very low ID4 sales. I think 0 in March. So there's some opportunity there. Oh, and if I didn't make those links clickable, I will make those links clickable before I post it. You can copy paste. It was just my mistake in that.
No, I'm talking about the links as we have the presentation, right? So.
Oh, I think you need to be looking at the presentation itself after the meeting to get to the active links. Yeah,
I know. I had one question about this news item. How can we take into account the waiting times for people, the low supply line problems? Is the drop kind of reflecting partly people having a hard time getting electric cars? Is this sales? What does sales mean? Does it mean delivery? Does it mean?
It means deliveries. Yeah, I'd say it means deliveries. It definitely doesn't mean reservations. So are they suppressed because of the chip constraints and the manufacturing delays? I would guess yes, significantly. And that's reflected in the overall down 26%. So what we're trying to monitor for is, are we seeing a shift here? And I don't know if we know quite yet, but I thought if we kept looking at this month over month, we might start to get a feel for it. Any questions?
I'll just say, so that my trip to Nevada was to get kind of my 1 year plus service on our Kia Niro EV. And we fortunately got that car just before the crisis of no available cars. And I will say, like, yeah, when we bought that car at the end of February of last year, their parking lot was full of cars, including EVs. And when I was there 2 weeks ago, it was empty. So there really is still a big supply issue. And I'll say maybe that's only speculating about the Leaf, but a car that's been in production for years and years maybe has a little better management of availability than cars that are just a couple years old.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, it's exciting to see the EV6 come in, and hopefully we'll see the VW ID4 numbers rise. And Tesla's conspicuously absent from that data set, but obviously they're bringing on a lot more manufacturing as well. I thought this was the big bombshell news event this month. Washington ends gas car sales in 2029. So Governor Jay Inslee, who ran for president, has signed a bill in Washington State called Move Ahead Washington. And it's a general climate change bill. And it includes the ban of gas-powered vehicles with a model year of 2030 or later. And I thought that the specifics of this bill were interesting, and so does the state of Rhode Island. The state of Rhode Island has taken the specifics of this bill, and they're moving it through their legislature. So it affects all sales and registrations in the state. So if you buy something out of state, you're not going to be able to register it in Washington in 2030. It's 7.5 years away. That's my own calculation. And it's 5 years earlier than California's similar legislation. California's legislation is not exactly the same as this legislation, but it is somewhat parallel. And it also includes hybrid electric ferries and new EV charging stations and general transit electrification projects, such as buses. Woody?
Thanks. Yeah, I just wanted to say that unfortunately here in California, that is no longer a climate leader state, We don't have legislation on this. We have an executive order from the governor from 2020, basically asking for 2035 to be the final year of gas car registrations. There was a bill introduced by Josh Becker, SB 1218, early in the session that would codify, create legislation that, solidifies the governor's executive order. It got killed in committee pretty quickly. We were actually hoping to take that bill and push that 2035 date to 2030. And there was a lot of coalitional support to do that. So we were hoping that would be the case, but WISPA, Western States Petroleum Association, and a number of other entities quickly crushed that effort. So there is no bill right now in the works that would do the same thing that Washington State has done. But, there are amendments and gut amends and other possibilities to still, during this legislative session, get something in there. But right now, there's nothing working in the state of California to make this kind of thing happen. We do have the executive order, but that is not law.
Got it. And I might not have represented that properly here. Zeno?
Yeah, so this was one of the things that was discussed at the Cal Bike event that I went to for a couple of days in Oakland. And the sentiment there was that that there's kind of a disconnect between the climate goals and these ideas, because the deadline is way too much in the future, and it takes quite a while for the whole fleet to be revamped. So if you look at what the practical impact is of this, it's not enough really, given that we have these awareness of urgency, right? So that remains an issue, and we still need to work on reducing vehicle mile travels for gas-powered motor vehicles in order to fit this development into a goal of reducing greenhouse gas emissions in the state of California, in the United States, and the world. We cannot say, oh, this is great, Washington is ahead of California, that kind of thing. But you need to frame it in the context of what do we need to do. And the vehicle mile travels is still a useful indicator to see how much on target we are. And that is a very big challenge. How do you get people use their car less and use other ways to get around?
Yeah. Yep. So although it doesn't go far enough, as Zeno is stating, I'm interested to see how this type of legislation pushes other states going forward. It definitely is a framework that we haven't seen before. And it seems pretty unique that the state of Washington was able to pass it. Even if, as you're saying, Zeno, it doesn't appear to be significant enough for where we're at. Yeah. All right. So this is kind of another way of looking at how things might occur at the state level. States adopting the California Clean Car Standards. There are 14 states, including DC, that have adopted the Clean Car Standards, and there are 3 more states pending. This might be a little dated from Bloomberg Law a month ago. So Minnesota, Nevada, New Mexico are, looking at adopting Clean Car Standards. The other states in gray, don't have those adoptions in place. So they're just under the regular federal standards. And I'm sure Woody has some nuance on this for me, but related, the regular federal CAFE standards of 49 miles per gallon, which were, I think, eliminated by Trump or watered down by Trump, were reinstated as of 2026. So these are kind of the other political pressures or regulatory pressures that are on the car industry at this point in time. Questions or comments? So the other thing that happened this month is that Biden announced the Defense Production Act. The Defense Production Act aims to secure American production of critical materials to bolster clean energy. So this is going to be affecting some authorization to support the production of different chemicals that are used in battery chemistries. This was considered a bit of a helpful measure, while the releasing of 1 million barrels of oil a day were considered somewhat unhelpful. I don't know if we have a news article on that as well. On to new EVs. So I just noticed this article and included it. There was a review of this new Subaru Solterra. I haven't seen one yet. I don't know if they're actually truly in production to be purchased, but I assume it's an early 2023 or late 2022 entry. It's a crossover SUV, and it has 226 miles of range. And in this particular review, it didn't get very great reviews on cornering or handling, but it had a unique kind of application, I would say, in that it has kind of a higher range and a really low speed mode that might be necessary if you lived in a really bad area, like Costa Rica or something like that, or other areas of West County. The regen for one pedal driving was something that was really favorable. So I think that kind of addresses Jerry's concern about the VWID. I think that, you know, in terms of people transitioning from gas to EV, they need the brands that they feel comfortable with. And this is an entry into a brand that has no EVs at this time. So that's helpful. I can't remember if someone else sent this one in or if it came from another kind of line of news, but generally this question of heavy duty trucks, I wasn't that familiar with the idea of a drayage or yard truck, but there's a company out there, Orange EV, that makes these types of trucks that I believe pulls things from point A to point B at shipyards and things like that. You know, they're usually in very heavily urbanized centers that have high rates of asthma. There are lots of great reasons to electrify these fleets. And it turns out that this type of class of trucks is starting to kind of infiltrate the industry. So they found that they have an uptime average of 98 to 99% compared to their legacy diesel uptimes of like 75 to 80%. And they're already cost effective even without subsidy. So this is an example of you could make a completely economic choice. And there's a CalSTART report that the Inside EVs article referenced that shows only about 1,200 of these that got sold, but it just seemed like a tipping point. They were kind of inferring that there were quite a few more in production that they were shipping out in the next coming months. So interesting area of EVs. Cecilia, this came from you, Waymo self-driving?
Yeah, it's been a while since I did thinking a little about it, but oh yeah, so Waymo is now in San Francisco. They are doing self-driving with employees without a safety driver in the car, and make it relate to like more directly like what we talk about, that they do have all electric Jaguar I-Paces, which they've been using as well.
Yeah, nice car. I saw one a couple weekends ago, but it did have a driver in it. and I walked in front of it. So that worked out. And then I also saw a Zoox mobility car, which is Zoox got acquired by Amazon, and then it was gas. So Zoox is working on autonomous driving as well. And it had all the equipment attached to the roof, but terribly disappointing. They're just using gas SUVs to test out their equipment at this point.
Yeah, can I say something about this slide?
Sure.
No, the previous
The
one.
previous slide?
Yeah. Yeah, so we have this this concept of single occupant vehicles. And so we need to start talking about zero occupant vehicles, because these self-driving cars have to go and pick up people at some location. So we may see a shift from parked cars to driving cars that are zero occupant. Yeah, so the impact of this is still rather speculative. It could be that there will be more cars on the road. He's looking at this particular aspect in isolation, right? The systemic impact is complicated probably, but certainly a terminology of zero occupant vehicle could be something to put to our thinking world.
I have a question about how this works. If I want to drive to work, I call up summon one of these vehicles, I'm guessing here, it comes to my house, I get in it all alone, right? So it's just me in the car, and I go to work, rather than have it go around and collect a bunch of people who are all going to the same place and taking, a full car. So, I mean, I don't know how it works, but if it only works like in the first version, I don't think it's a really great idea.
Yeah, I don't know much about how they plan to implement them, but they could carpool you and probably should, especially in an urban environment where it would be easy to pick up 3 people from a neighborhood and bring them downtown. But to Zeno's point, I think you're talking about the zero occupancy leg of that trip, and how inefficient that is in terms of the use of power. I don't know how this is going to all roll forward, but we're about to learn. So the city of Santa Rosa, I think this came from June and Woody on her behalf. You could speak to this, or I'll just speak to it. The city of Santa Rosa has been one of a few cities that received some funding from the FTA to purchase battery electric buses. And so this is kind of exciting. I think it was in the phase of, you now have $4.3 million, but they haven't picked like a vendor for these buses or routes or anything like that. So at this point in time, this would be interesting to watch going forward. City of Santa Rosa sounds like they'll be getting some of these buses, and they'll be making some of those decisions like they did around the 24 bus in Sebastopol, like where do you charge it, and who comes on duty to come get that bus and drive it around, kind of thing. Does anyone know anything more about City of Santa Rosa bus funding? The only other thing about this article that was interesting is that NAPA also received some money. They received more money, $8.5 million. And there are a total of 70 projects, several in California, but 70 projects nationwide that received funding through this allocation.
And Sonia, do you know if that was the city of Napa bus system or the county of Napa transit system?
It's Napa district, so I think it's county of Napa. Yeah, good question. It was there's a name for it, Brad, and I think I read it. It was like Napa District or something like that. It sounded more county oriented. Okay, so on this one, I think I found it. This is a little article that probably would best be a future research project. How a handful of metals could determine the future of the electric car industry, where the materials come from that make up the EV batteries. So, obviously this is a huge area of concern, that as we think about trying to electrify our fleets, whether they might be single occupancy vehicles or public transit vehicles, we need a lot more chemicals and rare earths to build those batteries. And China's really put a lot of legwork into making sure that they have the supply chain in place. And I think the United States is just learning that they're quite behind in this area. And then there are a couple of different things that are happening. I've read about the Salton Sea being an area that is ripe for mining lithium from lithium brine. And there are other areas of the US that might be available for mining. And there's also the different sources that we use that are from other countries like Chile. So any other questions or comments on metals?
Well, I think people are still researching alternative chemistries, right? Aware of this problem, because the availability and environmental impact of complete electrification with the existing chemistry is a big worry, I think, to me. So it would be good if Gary is interested in batteries and chemistry, to have a presentation maybe of what are people researching that requires more widely available, easily harvestable chemistry material.
Yeah, it would be interesting. Hopefully Jerry is interested in maybe looking at this a little closer. The shifts and changes that we keep hearing might happen. I haven't really seen anything that's been like a huge breakthrough, but I've seen small things like, the GM Ultium batteries using a lot less cobalt or something like that. Like the chemistries are being kind of tinkered with a little bit, but we haven't seen like a huge sea change into, kind of more available salts or things like that. So this was a kind of interesting angle where, right now we've got kind of these different leaders in battery manufacturing, and the largest battery manufacturer is the Chinese group CATL. And this battery manufacturer has quite a bit of experience and supplies Daimler, BMW, BAIC, and some other manufacturers, and a lot of Chinese EV car makers as well. And so they pick up a big amount of the market share of overall batteries across the world. This particular pie chart just shows how big they are in China alone. So I didn't find one for the world. The big thing that this particular article talked about was that CATL might be able to come into the US, establish a manufacturing site, and do this in a way that a lot of American manufacturers have established themselves in China, where they might provide information and intellectual property to North American manufacturers in return for being able to be allowed to manufacture in the US. So it's kind of a, it's kind of a way in which there might be, some US advantage. Even other manufacturers of other other manufacturers of batteries in the US seem kind of interested in them kind of entering into the US because they think it'll loosen up the supply chain in some ways. So that's what's going on with kettle. And there isn't a specific location yet that they've picked. They're just looking in the US, Mexico, or Canada. So we can follow along and see how that goes in the future. Jerry forwarded this particular bus photograph of a pantograph, and I think it was only in the last meeting or two that I learned what a pantograph is. This is the piece of equipment that can lower a connection point to the bus's battery charging system and charge the bus as it just drives under it. And so this Barcelona bus is a Solaris Urbino. And as soon as I saw that name, I saw it in like 2 other places in Europe. So apparently it's popular in Europe, this particular bus. And these fast charge poles were installed to charge it up. And that's why I kind of asked in that previous slide, like, will the City of Santa Rosa bus systems have a pantograph? And I suppose it'll depend on the buses they select. It's kind of like, you pick a bus or you pick a whole system. And how do you think about that in terms of, do you have a yard where you charge your buses, or do you just charge on the route in a couple different places? If you charged on the route in a couple of different places, how small would that battery get? Does it need to be a 50-mile battery? Smaller even? I don't know. So there's probably a little more to dig into here that would be interesting. Volvo has just announced that they're going to start mega casting aluminum. I thought this was interesting in terms of just production and batteries. There's a process on YouTube I linked to. They announced a new painting process as well. I didn't know painting was so important in getting these cars out, but apparently it is. And mega casting is something that started to be innovated by Tesla. So Tesla pioneered mega casting, and basically this big part here might have been 100 little parts in the past, and it would have to be assembled. And now they're just kind of making these really big parts, and cuts out a lot of assembly, is my guess. So that was interesting. The many ways that Tesla pioneering has really influenced manufacturing across all drivetrains. So any input? Got a couple hands up?
Can I comment on this previous slide?
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Yeah, so in Germany, I have a law that requires producers of big equipment to take back at the end of lifetime for recycling.
Yeah.
And so this mega casting, I would raise for me the question, does it make harder to recycle? Because it could be that in this one big piece, there are different parts that are now have to be taken out, and in the past it was like a separate piece of the assembly. So is this technique of mega casting influenced by local regulations about recycling?
Yeah, I don't know the direct answer, but I would suggest 2 things. One is that if it's an all aluminum part, it's ultimately recyclable. Someone's got some background noise right now. But the other part is that if you go to repair a portion of it, you may have a point to know. It might be harder to repair. I don't know.
Well, it's a big piece of a single alloy. It's not a mixture of I mean, I think it would be easier to recycle than any other car component.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I think you're right. I missed that.
Yeah, David was saying that it's a single alloy. It's all aluminum. It's easier to recycle.
Right.
It's not like a monster hybrid, as they say in Cradle to Cradle. It's not something that's hard to take apart. But when pieces get a little larger, it might be that if a piece of that gets crunched, you gotta just go recycle the old piece and swap in the new piece. But the recycling itself should be great. Cecilia? Are we moving on?
I have a question about that, or I want to elaborate on that too, but Woody, did you have your hand up first?
I actually think you had your hand up first, Cecilia.
Okay.
I was just going left to right on the
Okay.
images.
I watched a video of Sandy Monroe at the Cyber Rodeo in Austin, Texas, at the Tesla Gigafactory there, and he talked a lot about how what went on into doing these mega castings, how you are reducing from a lot of parts, and how it actually has a really huge time savings, and of course if you're not assembling stuff, then that's also a cost savings as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I think I was just going to ask, it clearly says casting, but the buzz that we keep hearing about is this 3D printing. So I was just curious as to whether, is this or 3D printing of, completely sort of assembled large parts, or is it just conventional casting? And it's just curiosity. I don't know that that's helpful to know, but that was what I was wondering.
Does anyone know if 3D printing is easily done with aluminum versus plastic? I just always assume 3D printing. There's a few different things you can 3D print, but I haven't heard about aluminum.
Okay,
Well,
maybe
there is
that's
metal 3D printing, but the whole issue is that it isn't scale. It doesn't gain efficiency as you scale it up. So 3D printing is still pretty much limited to prototyping things and small levels of production. It isn't going to move into high volume because there's the scalability. You have to have just more and more of those devices to do it.
Got it. Thanks.
Yeah. So are we ready to move over to the peanut gallery topic?
I got another comment.
Oh, go ahead.
I second the comments about Sandy Monroe and Monroe Associates. And I think in the slide here, I'm not sure that somebody else can comment, but I don't think Tesla really so-called pioneered it. I mean, Sandy Monroe had this concept and even had it sitting in their shop for years and had OEM people walking by it. And he has videos talking about how the OEM people just said, that's not practical, it's crazy. But I think he worked with Tesla and I don't know that until recently, I don't think they've put a whole sub chassis together. They've been doing several parts, but his concept was the whole sub chassis, put together, one piece basically. He's also working with Aptera in a different, not necessarily mega casting, but only 4 major body parts, which really speeds up the production process for producing an electric vehicle. And that's kind of along the same lines. He's been working with Aptera to do that. So they give a lot of credit to that guy being way ahead of his time on a whole bunch of issues.
If someone wanted to do a presentation just on Sandy Monroe, that would be really interesting.
He is a fan. I mean, some of his, and he says OEMs, he just had another video out and he said OEMs, they never seem to get it. I mean, they're still floundering around behind Tesla because of the way they think. They're thinking back in the 1940s, basically. So I don't know how it's going to work out, but time will tell, I guess, as they say.
Great. And David Harris, you had your hand up too? Oh, you're on mute. You're on mute, David. There we go.
Okay. I'm at the top on my screen. I'm at the top, and I couldn't see the mute thing up there. Okay. Right. This whole topic. There's an Italian company in the mix with Tesla on this, and I don't know who the leaders are in the technology right now.
You know what's really interesting about this conversation is that, you know, I took a lot of the information from Charge DV's article, and I'm hearing that some of it's incorrect. So, you know, thanks for everybody's feedback on it. All right, input from the peanut gallery. We kind of went through goals for 2022. We went through, you know, some of our ideas. Anything else that people want to bring up? We might have kind of exhausted it. David Harris.
Well, I did put something in the chat about name, and you know, EAA, we think of automobile, and we're starting to talk, you know, the national going to vehicle, but the next steps are, well, you go to T to encompass all types of transportation, and in reality, you know, remote learning, etc. The bottom line topic is access. You know, that actually by having a Zoom meeting like we are, we're all avoiding using our electric vehicles to get to to a central location. I mean, to our normal modus operandi previously was that we needed to physically get together. And so my point is, it kind of brings us full circle. If we were to change our name from the Electric Automobile Association to the Electric Access Association, we'd still be EAA. So,
I like clever things like that.
The move to suggest that we could be more comprehensive in our inclusive in our name, and I would advocate that, you know, remote learning, it has a big impact on the need for transportation. Remote meetings, and, you know, everything that we can do electronically is it's about access to other people largely, right? And the physical items, and that whole spectrum of our needs is really what we're addressing. And I would advocate for us to think of it in terms of access to all of our needs, and not just stop at moving to vehicle, or try to do something to incorporate transit in our name, and just understand that access is the overarching topic.
Very compelling reasons to consider that. Thank you. Cecilia?
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that the Northern Sonoma County Air Pollution Air Control District is offering incentives for installing publicly accessible EV charging. That would be up to $5,000 per plug for DC fast charging, and up to $15,000 for installation. So if you're in that area, that's something to look into if you want to see about trying to get stuff installed in places.
Do you think that would be for commercial, you know, businesses in Healdsburg and Windsor and so forth, mostly?
Yeah.
So if you know of a business in Healdsburg or Windsor, I was thinking, you know, there used to be this idea that, you know, all the hardware stores and grocery stores would start to offer EV charging stations for while you shop and things like that. And it seemed like somehow a lot of those businesses elected not to do it. But the time again has come again to kind of remind people where you shop. So if you go anywhere in Northern Sonoma County, that's interesting. Yeah. I'll offer one other comment on just wrapping up the little categorization of news and color categorization. What occurred to me is that, you know, there are certain things that are more interesting to people and less interesting to people. And I kind of guessed that the local news would be a little bit more interesting, and we might want to kind of like, go look for it a little bit more. But if there are any categories that people are like, I wish we did more of this and a little less of that, I think that's, something that we could talk about. Zeno?
Yeah, so when I did the social media for slow food, we had another category, and that was kind of advised in a course I took on how to run Facebook or other social media. And the category is bizarre.
Bizarre.
So
Okay.
it's always good to have in the flow of information something that is like bizarre, that is kind of odd or odd behavior, odd idea, playful, something like that too. So we could have another category, bizarre, and actually search for something bizarre every month, and have a little kind of comic relief in the flow of technicality.
I like that idea a lot. Thank you. Yeah. There's also on occasion we find some actual comics and things like that that are relevant. All right, presentation, open discussion. We've literally had our open discussion along the way, I think, through the news, but I covered the goals today. And the other thing that I didn't cover yet is a new idea. So I just wanted to throw out a new idea as part of our mini presentation today. And that would be if one of our goals in 2022 is to just increase visibility and kind of get out there and have a good time. If we find ourselves frustrated in any way by not seeing each other, maybe we could do an Amy's drive-through lunch. I looked at a couple of dates, May 7 or May 21. I thought maybe if we followed this pattern of like, we usually meet the second Saturday of every month. The fourth Saturday of May is probably bad for most people. So these are the remaining Saturdays in the month. And what do you guys think of this idea? Any interest?
Yeah, the Bicycle Coalition has a happy hour every month, so they do something similar.
Okay. Okay.
So it rotates through the city, so people are expected to come and bicycle.
Got it.
Got it. So explain a little more. What do you mean by a drive-through lunch?
So my idea was that Amy's drive-through is kind of the name of the restaurant, but we wouldn't necessarily use the drive-through. We would probably show up at Amy's, park our electric vehicles, and meet each other outdoors to have lunch. And the open question is, whether or not we want to also put a sign out on our cars or invite, conversation with passersby, or just do it as an affinity lunch, So I think our organization hasn't necessarily done this too much. I think we might have done it once in the past. But, we obviously just weren't really doing anything the last couple of years. And this would be kind of, prior to really deciding to meet at Thunderstruck, we may decide that we have a comfort level with the COVID levels, et cetera, and personal responsibility to just meet outdoors to have lunch at Amy's.
We had a lunch once at the Washoe House, and there was it was associated with a field trip, but we did eat there, and they do have outdoor dining now at the Washoe House.
So the Washoe House might be another option, and a lot of people show up at the Washoe on the weekends and things like that, and so that's also great visibility.
Yeah, I don't think Washoe has EV charging, no, and Amy's drive-through does, right? There's level 2 at Amy's, and
they do.
And close to Amy's, of course, is a casino, which has still free level 3 charging. So
Yeah, and there's some Tesla charging stations nearby too. I don't know if people need charging, as part of the event, but it's always nice to be near charging in terms of visibility.
Well, I will say I like the idea that, I mean, if we did it and we all parked EVs close to each other, we should use the opportunity to talk to people who are coming and going at the restaurant if they want to.
Mhm.
I mean, we will find a fair number of EVs, but there's still obviously the majority of people have not made the change. So
Yep,
I'll vote favor of this idea, Sonia. I think it's a good idea.
yeah,
And if no more than a half a dozen of us showed up, it would still be worthwhile.
yeah. David?
I don't know, another idea might be, just saying that to get thinking about getting the word out about electric vehicles here in Fairfield. Unfortunately, they have a thing called Cars and Coffee, but I guess those events are all over the place. I don't know, they might be in Santa Rosa or Napa too. Unfortunately, here it's on the same morning and almost the same time here as we have our meeting, the second Saturday. But if they have a Cars and Coffee, when I've taken my car, there are people, well, because of its unique classic car, that's one reason they come up. But I find that they have all kinds of gas cars there that, they're like a dime a dozen, and people are looking for something different. So when you show up with, I mean, you're going to have a problem with some people because, they're gas guys, but you start talking to people and they are actually quite interested, and particularly with the price of gas today. It's just a show up thing, but if you get people to talk to you, you can pass the word along. We might pass out cards or whatever. I've had a lot of people just come up and just going, wow, what is that crazy vehicle? So it might be another avenue to get the word out, and particularly with gas prices today. And
Mhm.
everybody that goes to these cars things are usually pretty friendly. So you just talk to a lot of people. Just
Yeah.
a thought.
Yeah, there's one tomorrow in Santa Rosa from 8 to 10 in the morning, I think at Covington,
Oh,
Yeah.
really? Wow.
Ice and coffee.
Usually they have it like once a month, I guess. So, it's an ongoing thing and you get to know people and pass the word around.
So, I like these other ideas. And one of the things that just came up that might mean we might want to postpone and look for a June Cars and Coffee or something like that is that it seems like if we were to kind of start to get out there at these kinds of events, that we would want something in hand to hand somebody, or we would want like the site up so that we could just tell people, go to our site. So there might be kind of like a couple pieces that are not quite ready yet for us reaching out to others. Do you guys want me to bring this up in our next meeting, and then maybe we can consider Cars and Coffee versus a specific Amy's drive-through or Washoe House kind of event in June? Lowell, I think you're
Yes,
talking.
I would say, I would be in favor of that. I think we should certainly keep this topic, in play here. I think it's a good one, and we'd have to kind of all figure out when we could get together and what would be a suitable time for the most people, but sure we could figure that out.
Yeah, we'd need some dates, and then we'd be getting into summer, which might be a little hard, but even if just half of us are free, it might be something that we could do a couple times over. I do think that it would be kind of handy to have the site up, or a little something in hand. In the past, we had some materials. They're in my barn right now. The materials are just too old,
Right.
And so anything that we might offer in terms of information or vibrancy around, coming to join us. What you got there? Oh, you've got Cars and Coffee Santa Rosa. Maybe you can send that link around. Yeah. Cecilia?
Oh, since we were talking about the website a lot, I do want to report that I do have a version of the website up on the new host. It is running. Still, like, want to make some tweaks and things like that, but I think it's better than what we have now. So, we can do this pretty soon.
Yeah, if people aren't familiar, it's really great. As soon as you have something better than what you previously had, to just get it up there and iterate on it versus, gum it to death for a while. So it'll be really exciting to get that up there. And I think, one of Cecilia's big challenges was just sorting out the hosting aspect of it, right? So, just sorting that out with Jerry, and then we'll be able to push it. That's exciting.
Yeah, that part's sorted.
Oh, it is sorted now. Okay, cool. That's great. That's great. Well, maybe I should ask this question, like, do we need to have kind of like a little web subcommittee green light kind of meeting or something like that? Like, how do you think we should move forward to getting it up there?
Yeah, if we can get a meeting going, then I think that'd be great, and get some folks like trained up on using the site and adding stuff that would be useful. Or like if we want to push people to the sites, like, here are things that we want to have there.
Okay, great. Are there any members that aren't a member of the website committee that might want to become one, or are we all good at this time? Sounds like we'll move forward with the committee we have. Great. All right. Well, I think we're kind of winding down. We've got cool links here. I didn't update, but there are a couple things I'd like to include next month. There's some really interesting controversial stuff out on YouTube that I've been finding, and so we'll see if we can improve our links to things that people can kind of watch in the future. Our next meeting, May 14, I think we'll continue online next meeting, but we should have some updates by next meeting as well. And I think we have kind of a lot of internal stuff to discuss and maybe move forward. But that gets a little bit tedious. So if anyone has an idea of a presentation or a mini presentation, let me know during the course of the month. And it can even be a discussion topic, as I mentioned earlier. And I think that's the end of our meeting.
Well, kudos to you, Sonia. Yeah.
Yep.
We're off to a good start, and even without a program presenter,
Yeah.
it's useful.
Great.
Good
Thanks.
meeting. Thanks.
Thanks
Yeah,
all.
Thanks, John.
We'll talk next month then.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Bye.